Morning, campus partners. Thank you for taking the time to join our procurement methods. We'll give people a minute or two before we get started with the presentation. We do have a lot of items to go over and topics of conversation, so hopefully it's an informative session for you all. And we look forward to making this an interactive and collaborative presentation for you. My purchasing staff has joined. Everyone's here on task with us. So hopefully, again, this will be in training that's going to be beneficial and help you with your purchasing methodologies or requests submitted to our office. We'll get started shortly here. Thank you.
I just want to add one more thing to that. If you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll address them verbally in between slides.
And I think you guys have the ability to unmute yourself. So if you need to ask the question, please go ahead by all means. We have the whole team here ready to support and answer any questions submitted to you or from you. All right, it's 10:02. I think we have about 22 participants on the call right now. Again, I thank you in advance for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Next slide. Okay. So I want to give you a quick overview or brief intro how purchasing gets their authority. So the CSU is committed to, having fair, ethical, and professional business practices. We have policies that ensure that procurement is efficient, transparent, and delivers the best value for the university. Our delegation of authority, or DOA, derives from the Board of Trustees. They grant us the authority to the Chancellor's Office under education codes and public contract codes. Then the Chancellor's Office delegates that authority to the campus presidents and administrative staff to manage purchasing, contracting, and related activities. The campus presidents then delegates the authority to contract and procurement to ensure that policies align with CSU's overall objectives. The last statement right there is an imperative one for you to keep in mind. Our office is the only entity on campus that can legally bind the university into contractual obligations. So if you have any type of a quote, contract agreement that your sales rep or vendors are asking you to sign, please write it to us. You don't want to put them in jeopardy or put them in an awkward situation where they're operating on something that's not valid on behalf of the university. The policy intentions are to maximize flexibility for campuses while ensuring compliance with state law and CSU trusted policy. And believe me, there's plenty of policy that we adhere to. It also promotes sound business judgment and internal controls for procurement activities. Next, please. So we have some common procurement methods. Most of you are familiar with the purchase requisition. This is a formal internal request to procure goods or services, typically submitted via a department to the procurement office for approval and processing. And this is done through PeopleSoft, a CFS. Many of you know this. One thing to keep in mind with that is, when you submit the requisition, please ensure that it is approved by your fiscal manager or approving official, so that it could go through the overnight budget check. A lot of the times requisitions might be stay in limbo, and they don't show up in our queue until it's get fully approved and budget checked. Another methodology that we have is competitive bidding. This is a formal process where suppliers submit sealed bids, and the contract is awarded based on a predefined set of criteria, such as price, quality, experience, and compliance with requirements to ensure that the best and overall value for the university. We also have the request for quotations. This is a simplified method for obtaining price quotes from vendors for goods or services, and it's typically used for mid-value purchases. So this is a process that is more streamlined than a formal bidding. As I'm about to mention, the request for proposal. This is the process for purchasing or procuring complex services or products, where proposals are evaluated based on multiple factors, including cost, quality, and methodology and approach to resolving your request. And lastly, we have something that it's almost like a trick up our sleeve that we try to use a lot of the times, is the cooperative agreements or co-ops purchasing. This method is where multiple organizations pool their purchasing power to obtain better pricing and terms by leveraging existing contracts. Some of you might be familiar with our CSU Buy marketplace. A lot of those contracts or vendors that are there are out of cooperative purchasing agreements, and hence why they give you a streamlined methodology to process orders or your services via a P card. Next. So we have the purchase requisition overview. So the purchasing requisition, again, is a formal internal request to purchase goods and services requiring approval before the purchase can be made. As mentioned earlier, remember, if your approving official does not approve it in CFS or PeopleSoft, then the budget check system that happens overnight doesn't take place. When that happens, we don't see that requisition in our buyer assignment queue. That's how we typically get the requisitions, and I assign them. Myself and Sally Yassin, my Associate Director for Public Works, assign them to the group of buyers that you see on the call here with us. It has some detailed guidelines related to purchasing requisitions are available through our CSUF IT website. You can see the QR below for set trainings. Trainings are available for creating a purchase requisition, the requisition checklist, how to modify a requisition, as well as canceling a requisition. And there's a lot more that you would find in that QR code. If you do have any questions or need assistance while entering your purchase requisition, do not hesitate to email us at the DLC_N_P@fullerton.edu. And we'll be happy to help. We monitor that a ticketing system. I think many of you guys have known, seen, or now experienced that when you send us an email, you get a ServiceNow incident ticket. We're using that to help us, again, streamline and stay on top of our mailbox. If no question, I'll go to next. All right, this was an important slide for you guys to be cognizant of. This is the purchase requisition checklist. These are the items that should be included with the requisition. And we put applicable because maybe not all these items are applicable. It all depends on the type of buy that you're doing. Maybe a service, might be an ITR, which is an information technology resource acquisition. So some of these items will apply. The vendor ad request is initiated through Smartsheet at the same time as submitting the requisition. One key point to that is when you're using AP, so accounts payable Smartsheet for new vendor creation, you must have a requisition number. So just wanted to point that out for you, okay? If you're requesting the vendor or initiating that new vendor add-on, please have your rec number to display. This is a required field. The vendor quote that includes tax and shipping. We ask you that those quotes be within 30 days of the request. And I know that sometimes we get requisitions that are one line item or lump sum instead of being itemized. We do ask you to please help us itemize your quotes and to mirror the requisition. However, if you're going to just create a one lump sum on the rec queue, and please include the tax and shipping costs associated with that, one line item requisition. Otherwise, you might be getting an email from the staff asking for approval to increase the requisition amount. So in other words, don't just put the subtotal amount. Please include the full total cost associated with that quote. But ideally, we want you to please itemize it. If there are any contractual documents that require review and signature, please include those in the attachments to the requisition. I think in our last training conducted by Ryan, we said that you have the ability to upload multiple documents if you just go into the header comments of your requisition page and hit the plus sign. You'll be able to add multiple documents, and they're allowed in all types of formats as well. You also need to include your independent contractor determination email. This is imperative for service providers, whether it be DJs, photographers, guest speakers. I believe many of you also might have attended the HRIE independent contractor training we had. We are looking for that email or determination email to move forward with your request. If it's not added or included with the requisition, it may delay the processing of your requisition. So please help us with that. We also ask you to help us get the certificate of insurance. A lot of the times you're dealing with vendors or sales reps that know that this is a requirement. So please have them give you the COI. There are new requirements and dollar thresholds with the insurance requirements. We'll cover that in another slide. But these new requirements were effective as of 11/2024. We ask you to please include any hospitality forms, formerly known as the D11, for any acquisitions or requests that fall into those categories. We'll have a lot of this information on another slide where we have imperative links or critical sites for you guys to visit. The IT Purchasing Authorization Approval, also known as your RITM. This is required for all IT acquisitions, and this is so that we could be in compliance with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. It is imperative for you to start this early as well. We will not be able to process that requisition until all approvals have been gathered from that process, and there are several workflows associated with that. So if you're buying IT, please keep that in mind. We'll also have a link for you to give you additional information on that. Any furniture order must have ADA approval. You go through a facilities management approval process. They have some information on their site as well. If you're buying vehicles, there's also a fleet management vehicle justification that needs to be included on your requisition. If you're buying anything that's branding approval, we need that approval from Strategic Communications. There's also a form, or there will be a form that we're using for that particular approval process. We have a set, number of suppliers that have been approved to use our branding and our logo and our licensing. So if you choose from those vendors, your requisition or your acquisition will go a lot smoother. Chemical purchases, we also have a request approval for that. Training is coming on that, and we also have a link for you guys to look at those. All these links will be available on slide 20. So again, these are just items that we ask you to help us in advance. We understand it's not your duty, but it does help, move your requisition a lot faster if you do. But if not, the buyers will handle a lot of these items for you, most likely reaching out to you and requesting some of these because a few of these are initiated on your end. Certificate of insurance, we know what we need to do with vendors, right? But IT or RITMs, that's definitely something that's end user driven, and we'll reach out to you if your rec does not have that. Any questions? And if not, I can move forward. Okay, next. All right, we're going to include this CSU bid threshold. This table should give you an idea as to what we, as a purchasing department, go through when we are buying, whether it be goods, services, ITR, or information technology resources goods, or information technology services. Anything less than $50,000, competition is not required, but an informal solicitation is highly recommended. Okay, so for goods, if it's between 50,000 and 100,000, we need 3 informal quotes. You could help us by getting that for us. The only caveat that we mentioned to you is make sure that in all these informal bidding processes associated with the services or the type of services, that you provide your proposed vendors the same type of scope of work or the same request. For the small business and DVB option, we could, as buyers, utilize that special condition, and we'll enact that when we see best feasible and help move your requisition along. If it's 100,000, above 100,000 for goods and services, it is a formal solicitation. We must advertise in CSU BUY, also known as FISCAL, and that RFP or request for proposal must be posted for 10 business days. So again, anything over 100,000 has become more of a formal bidding process for us. If you notice for a small business in DVB option, we could go up to $250,000 with these type of acquisitions. Granted that the small business must be a California certified small business as well as the DVBE. Okay, a lot of the times you'll have your supplier letting you know, oh, we're a small business, and that's great and dandy. But if they're not registered with the state of California, we as a purchasing department cannot utilize this option under our arsenal. Okay, with regards to IT goods and IT services, the bidding threshold goes a lot higher. It goes up to 500,000. So greater than 500,000 for IT acquisitions of services and goods. You could do informal bids, quotes, and the DVB in small business, but anything over the 500K, we must look at it from a formal bidding perspective. And please keep in mind that there is a feasibility study that applies to any ITR that is estimated to be $1 million and above. And that feasibility study, not only is it needs to be approved and reviewed by us, but it's also sent to the chancellor's office for their review and approval as well. So plan accordingly if we're going to be dabbling in those high dollar thresholds. Next. So thank you again. Again, I'm throwing a lot of information. You know, sometimes I get carried away because I'm a fast talker. I should have been an auctioneer or something. But if I'm going too fast, let me know. I'll try to slow it down for you as well. But there is a lot of data being thrown at you. But I think this recording and this presentation or PDF or PowerPoint will be shared with you as well. So when requests for quotations come into play, here's an overview of what we're looking for. So a request for a quotation is a procurement method used to obtain price quotes for goods and services. Again, it's typically for mid-value purchases where the requirements are clear. There's no ambiguity. We know what we want, but it also ensures that we get competitive pricing while maintaining efficiency on your behalf. Some of the key features of an RFQ: we require 3 informal quotes. Again, unless it's a small business or a disabled veteran business enterprise, we'll use that option when applicable and when it's needed, so that we could expedite your request. Again, it's a little bit faster and less complex than a formal request for proposal. It may be used for goods, services, IT-related goods, and IT services. When to use an RFQ? Again, when the purchases are between 50 and 100,000, as discussed in the previous slide. When the product or service specifications are well defined, again, you know what you want, you know it's a widget, or you know the set of service that you need, and proposals are able to just give you a cost-related proposal for it. When a competitive, simplify, and expedite process is needed, that's just when an RFQ can be used. When formal solicitation is not required, but cost comparison is necessary. Again, that cost comparison might be needed because you went over the 50,000, but you're still within the realm of the 100,000. So from 50 to 100,000, we could process your request via an informal bidding process. The RFQs help promote competition, cost savings, and efficiency in public procurement while maintaining compliance with regulations. Again, we are bound by various, policy stats or CSU, Chancellor's Office codes, regulations, education codes, and public contract codes. So all these components are embedded into our process. Next. So the request for proposal. A request for proposal is a formal solicitation methodology, and it is used for complex procurements where factors are beyond prices, are beyond qualifications, experience, and methodologies. These are all considered when selecting a vendor. The key features of an RFP: it must be publicly advertised in Fiscal, also known as Cal eProcure. So basically, we advertise in Fiscal, then Fiscal talks to Cal eProcure, which is a public domain where agencies' biddings are shared with an array, number of suppliers out there in the industry. It is determined by the type of acquisition we're doing, and that's how they get notified that there is a bid happening for CSU, Fullerton, and minimum, it needs to be advertised by 10 business days. But just so you know, our RFPs could take anywhere from 1 to 3 months from inception to awarding a contract. There's got to be room and time for answers, questions, addendums, and evaluation components are all fit into this timeline. They're evaluated based on best value and not just on the lowest price. What that means is in the RFP process, we include a evaluation criteria that vendors are aware ahead of time what they're going to be graded on and how they're going to get those points awarded on each of the grading criteria. It is a good, it is used for goods, services, IT-related goods and IT services would exceed the thresholds that were previously mentioned. Again, the feasibility studies are required for IT-related procurement over $1 million. So add that into the equation of the RFP. And before we even go out for an RFP for IT-related purchases that are over $1 million, the CEO must approve that for us as well, or the Chancellor's office, sorry. When to use an RFP? Required for purchases over 100,000 or 500K for the IT acquisitions. When procurement requires detailed evaluation criteria, it is used when solutions or approaches may vary among vendors. So in other words, you conceptually know what you want, whether it be a product or a service, but you're relying on the subject matter experts in the field to give you their best possible solutions. And you'd be amazed at how creative vendors get when trying to gain your business or win your business. So again, this is a good tool for us to use when the technical expertise, experience, and methodologies are key factors. We rely on our proposers to give us those best solutions while keeping costs at a minimum for your department or for the university. Again, RFPs help ensure that we have transparency, that we go through the competitive selection methodology, and it helps us with policy compliance and are the best value for public agencies in complex procurement acquisitions. Next. Lastly, I think we try to use this as a means to help you guys process some of your high dollar acquisitions. As you are aware, the deadline for fiscal year end has come and gone, right, on some of these dollar thresholds. When we get requisitions above that, those dollar thresholds that were required for formal bidding, this is where cooperative and master enabling agreements come into play. The Cal State University system, or the CSU, utilizes co-op agreements and master enabling agreements, otherwise known as MEAs, to achieve better terms, pricings, and we streamline the procurement process for us. These agreements provide access to pre-negotiated contracts with vendors, ensuring competitive pricing. They have favorable terms and conditions for us, and they reduce administrative effort for all types of purchases. When we mention favorable terms, I'm not sure if you guys have experience or not, but 10 years ago, let's say, for example, the CSU or the state of California trumped when it came to terms and conditions. But you'll be amazed how many low dollar acquisitions now have the terms and conditions coming out to play. So the buyers here have to spend a lot of time reviewing, contract terms, and even on quotes. If you notice, sometimes the vendors will say, by you accepting this or by you issuing a purchase order, you adhere to our terms and conditions. Well, lo and behold, when we ask what are those, terms and conditions, we'll get a plethora of pages with an amount of caveats that we must review and negotiate with vendors. Always keep in mind that per advice from legal counsel, our terms and conditions take precedence over any supplier's terms and conditions. And hence why sometimes we delay some of the requests or acquisitions. This is where MEAs, again, come into play and do that work for us. So master enabling agreements are pre-negotiated contracts through the Chancellor's office with vendors that simplify purchasing and ensure competitive bidding. The buyers have access to an array database of MEAs that we try to utilize when processing your requisitions. We also leverage the California Department of General Services, also known as DGS contracts. These are statewide agreements offering pre-vetted suppliers and value discounts. We use these a lot with furniture orders, vehicle orders, or sometimes even large chemical and lab equipment purchases. We have group purchasing organizations, or GPOs, These are contracts from co-ops, purchasing groups like Omnia Partners, TIPS, Sourcewell. Um, these are all organizations that have gone through the trouble of doing public RFPs on behalf of many state agencies. And by leveraging their agreements, we could reduce sometimes your processing of your formal request for proposal. Granted, not all services and all unique buys for the university are there, but a lot of the time we are able to leverage on these type of agreements, and it burdens, it lessens the burden on administrative time spent on your formal proposals. Another one that we have is the UC agreements. So we partner with the University of California, universities. A lot of the times they have agency contracts between us and them, where we're able to share their pre-negotiated contracts and services. When utilizing this, again, we reference all these on your purchase orders or requisitions, so that we could, be in compliance with our requirements and our bidding requirements. And lastly, we have the educational co-ops or cooperatives. These are agreements that we use through CSU Buy Marketplace. A lot of the marketplace vendors you see in CSU Buy have E&I cooperative services. These type of co-ops focus mainly on education consortiums. So we like to use them because it's a quick and easy way for us to process your request. At the same time, it adheres to all the mandates that we must, comply with. So again, using these agreements helps the CSU institutions like Fullerton to save time, reduce costs, and ensure compliance with procurement policies while meeting your needs more efficiently and effectively. Next. All right. For you as end users, evaluating and selecting the right procurement method, mm, we have a couple of decision-making criteria here for you to use when determining the most appropriate purchasing method. Please consider the following key factors. I know that the buyers do, for as a matter of fact, we take all this into consideration when we get the bundle of requisitions. And as you could imagine, with fiscal year end, we are getting quite a bit in our queues right now. So we look at cost. Does it align with the budget constraints and ensures best value for your department? Time accounts for urgency and procurement lead time. So, again, when time is of the essence, we try to utilize any arsenal under our command so that we could try to, purchase your product in a timely manner. The complexity. This reflects the technical and contractual requirements. So again, the buyers deal more with this because a lot of the times it may be a $2,000 order, but the vendor will throw in, a wrench in the gears with regards to adhering to the terms and conditions. So all of a sudden, we're doing the battle of the forms with them. Competition determines the market availability and vendor engagement. Then we also have regulatory and CSU compliance. Again, this ensures that the campus and we as a purchasing department are adhering to all CSU policies, state laws, and procurement best practices. Um, in the back end, for us, this is imperative. When we have state or financial audits, every auditor that comes in here is looking to ensure that we cross every T and dotted every I when it came to state laws or CSU policies, and they hold us up to those standards. So we appreciate your patience and time with us because we think of future events, especially in audits when they come our way. So selecting the right approach. So for us as buyers and also for you as end users, think about low cost. Is it a straightforward need? Is it purchase requisition? Is it a purchase requisition or is it a request for quotation? Is it between the $50,000 and $100,000 threshold? For complex or service-based procurements, it's the RFP process, the request for proposal. This is the formal bidding process. And again, it's typically for orders over 100,000, unless we could use a co-op agreement or an MEA or a Department of General Services contract. So this is what we do for cost savings and efficiency. These are the type of agreements that we use. All right. now we're getting into IT purchasing process. You're going to see a lot of data here and a lot of information. We'll try to streamline this for you as much as possible. But the electronic IT purchase request form initiates and documents the review process of IT products or services to ensure that our campus adheres to CSU policy, ADA compliance, and also be compliant with the Rehabilitation Act of 1978, also known as Section 508 compliance. The form must be completed by the purchase requester or the end user, and it's reviewed for compliance and approved by an IT or ATI subject matter expert prior to proceeding with the purchase. The high-level steps involved in this process are request is submitted via ServiceNow. I think we'll have a link to that IT website where you initiate this request. Again, it's also known as your RITM. The request is routed simultaneously to appropriate subject matter experts. It is based on product or / service subject matter experts, and they could initiate the IT, ATI, ISO, and PCI compliance. ISO is basically security review. PCI compliance deals with when we're dealing with credit card transactions. And contracts and procurement has a task in this process because we determine whether it's going to be on a requisition or a P card. One thing that I want to throw in here that is not in here is you might be noticing that contracts and procurement now is engaging more with you through ServiceNow, especially with software agreements, because a lot of vendors now are throwing the famous GDPR or General Data Protection Regulation requirements into small dollar buys. And it's something that we are really struggling with because, there's no policy per se, but we've also been advised that the universities or the CSU as a whole should not be engaging with any type of software that deals with General Data Protection Regulations or GDPR. It's basically a European Union more restrictive way of how to deal and handle confidential data. All right, moving on to number 3. Upon receipt and review of all required documentation, requests will be reviewed for compliance and assessed. Again, the various groups that mentioned earlier are the ones that are assessing for this compliance and completion. A response will be provided to the requester via ServiceNow. I think you guys are accustomed to seeing either your ticket being closed out or an RITM number given to you when it is gone through the whole gamut of approvals. A quick note, an IT purchase authorization is required for any purchase involving IT components. This includes hardware, software, artificial intelligence tools, any digital media subscriptions, cloud services, mobile apps, web-based platforms, or any service that processes, stores, or integrates data with campus systems. So again, these are the 6 standard categories that are under the Section 508 compliance of the Rehabilitation Act, okay? We just streamline them here in this particular note. If no questions, we'll move forward. So IT purchasing considerations. If the CSU protected data is being accessed by a contractor, contracts and procurement will need to attach the data privacy and security rider to the contract. This is a additional terms and conditions that are associated with our purchase orders. So again, that's enacted by the review of your RITM. A lot of the times, IT will let us know, hey, there's level 1 and level 2 data initiated with this buy. Please include your data privacy and security rider. If it is software or a web-based platform being procured, then Accessible Technology Initiative policy applies. Therefore, you will need to get a VPAT, or you'll need a VPAT from the contractor for accessibility review and compliance. ATI Section 508 compliant has been around for about 15 years almost now. So a lot of vendors, especially IT vendors, know about this, and they should know what a VPAT is. And so when you're working with a vendor that you're going to buy software or reviewing for software, do a quick search on their websites to see if they have a VPAT for the product. And the VPAT basically stands for a vendor product accessibility template. It's a supplier-generated statement that provides information on how a product or service conforms to the Section 508 accessibility standards for the information communication technology. So that is required. And another document that is required when dealing with cloud-based or software or any software that deals with data is the HECBAC. And it is required when engaging with vendors who handle sensitive or regulated university data. Again, cloud services or systems that integrate with the campus infrastructure, particularly for security and privacy assessment. The SOC 2, this is a security organization controls. That's what that stands for. Again, and it's required for vendors that are offering cloud services or software solutions that store or process sensitive data, providing third-party assurance of compliance with security, privacy, and data protection standards. These two bullet points, the HECBAT and the SOC 2, is something that when you submit your RITM, it's going to be probably requested or follow on by IT subject matter experts. Again, purchasing does not, necessarily get involved with this, but we will not be able to proceed with your acquisition until these components have been satisfied from our IT partners. Now, when all this fails, especially with the VPAD, that's the document that shows whether a product or service conforms to accessibility standards. Let's say that you don't have a VPAD or you cannot find a VPAD or that the VPAD itself is deficient and doesn't meet muster to buy the product, then IT is going to reach out to you and ask for an EAP. That stands for Equal and Effective Alternate Access Plan. So sometimes you must have this software, whether it be to teach a classroom or is required for a lab. So we're not going to outright deny the buy, but you are going to have to, provide a way for you to make the product or service equally accessible by all students, faculty, and staff. And again, that's where the EAP comes into play. All these supporting documents or reports can either be provided in advance when submitting the IT purchasing process, or again, they will be requested by IT during their review. And another note, we cannot process any IT purchases until the IT purchase request form is completed. Various tasks and the workflow is very convoluted and complex in that whole process. Our task, again, is simply letting you know whether you're going to use a P card or a requisition. But just because we complete our task doesn't mean that the IT review of the HECBAC or the SOC 2 report has been done. So if that's the case, please follow with IT via their email that you'll see later on. Next. Oh, go
Oh,
ahead, Lauren.
yeah, I want to chime in really quick. Just one other thing to know, I noticed it's not mentioned here, is for renewals, if you're purchasing software or software services, subscriptions that are renewals, they also will need to be this is for every purchase. So if you're purchasing another year of something you've already had approved, it would need to go through that process again for each year. Because these software changes year by year, and we need to make sure that it stays in compliance.
Good point, Lauren. And it is mandated by policy, by state and federal policy, that is per financial transaction, as Lauren just mentioned. So one word of advice that Lauren brought up to my mind is if you're doing monthly subscriptions, it's best that you ask your service provider or the software provider to give you an annual cost. That way you don't have to be submitting an RITM every month because it is per financial transaction, per policy and state law. Next. All right, as mentioned earlier, right, as one of your checklist components for your requisitions, you would help us greatly if you could help get the COI or the certificate of insurance. A lot of the times, this is one of the hangers, time delays for us as in the purchasing department, getting vendors to get us their COI. But it's not just their certificate of insurance. Per CSU Risk Management Technical Letter 2012-01, this requires that all contractors, vendors, and suppliers providing services to the university provide evidence of insurance with endorsements and insurers ratings of by AM Best prior to the commencement of any services. A lot of the times we get the COI, but the COI is just for information purposes. What really, validates that certificate of insurance is the additional endorsement letter. And that additional endorsement letter, again, has to have an AM Best rating of A plus or 7. When those components are not met, we have to work with risk management to make an assessment on your behalf. So this is where the delays come into this. As mentioned earlier, evidence of coverage change. It used to be for commercial general liability or GL, it used to be 1 million, 2 million. Now it's increased to 2 million, 4 million. So that's causing a little bit of ruckus for us as a lot of small businesses or people that have not kept up with the changes in the policy are struggling with those new thresholds. So we ask you to, work with us and work with them in advance, asking for that COI and helping them meet these 2 million, 4 million, aggregates. I think products for complete operations aggregates stay the same for $1 million, as well as for business automotive liability. They stay within the $1 million. Workman's comp, as required under California state law with employers, liability limits of no less than $1 million. One thing to keep in mind, a lot of the times corporations will tell us that they're a one person, entity, and that's fine, but we must get them to sign off on a workers' comp waiver. And sometimes we get risk management involved to approve that or be done with that as well. Um, we do ask for professional liability when it comes to consulting agreements. As you can see there, they're also known as errors and omissions. So that professional liability is required when dealing with consulting agreements or architectural, type of services. So the threshold is a little bit higher for those. But I think that's all we have for insurance. All we ask is that you, again, be a little bit lenient with us when requesting with this and working with these vendors on these COIs. Um, we do have an array of risk assessments that we've already, worked with risk management on. So again, the buyers here will implore any tool or any, any information that we could use to streamline your request and process. Next. Now we come to other contracts and agreements. A lot of the times you might not be submitting a requisition for these types of agreements. We have graciously Christian Bonus on my department deals with a lot of these type of agreements, but all the buyers as well. But mainly this is her forte now. We have $0 agreements that could be submitted via our contract request application. Some of you may be aware or familiar with this app. It's on our website, and we'll have a link to that as well. But on that link, we're asking you to, again, only submit $0 agreements. We have clinical internships, teaching, nursing, and social work. We have MOUs that we try to establish for you. We have interagency and interagency agreements that we review. There's revenue generating contracts that get submitted via that. There's capital equipment leases that get submitted there as well. We have ground or facility property lease agreements that could be done through there. There's also tax exempt financing that could be generated through that contract request apps. And there's also emergency agreements. We have auxiliary as well, agreements that go through that. We work in partnership with the auxiliary services where contract is reviewing and given, our, for lack of a better word, 2 cents on some of the agreements that they're dealing with. And I think on the following slides, we're going to present to you what that contract request app looks like.
Hey, Alex, there was a question that came in from Paul Cruz.
Okay.
It's regarding insurance. He said, are there documentation for suppliers to submit if the general liability minimums are not met? I can go ahead and take a stab at it if you want.
Let's go for it. Go for it, Lauren.
So like Alex mentioned, if it's not met, we'll usually engage with them and their brokers and do what we can to see if they can secure the amounts. If they can't, then we would work with risk management. At that point, it would be our office would handle that essentially. So you just let us know. If you know ahead of time, that's great, and you can let us know. That'll save a little time because we have to have some sort of justification as to why we're going to continue to work with them if they can't meet our requirements. But so to answer your question, just let us know and we would take care of it at that point.
Correct. And there is, thank you, Lauren. And again, we do take into consideration that these thresholds are new. So sometimes we'll also reach out to you, or risk management might reach out to you to ask more questions so that we could mitigate the risk, right? If it's not that high, then Michael sometimes will accept the old general aggregates, the 1 million, 2 million. Go ahead, Lauren. I saw
Uh,
another question.
Yeah, and to add on to that one other thing, it's kind of a case by case basis. It really depends on what they're doing. If it was for some kind of professional services or construction, architectural, things like that, we don't really make exceptions, but it's really a case by case basis. Um, yeah, he had a follow-on question to that. He said, "Is it the risk acceptance memo with risk management?" No, that's actually a different form. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, it could be too, Lauren. I'm thinking, but that risk acceptance memo that you're thinking about, Paul, is more related to caveats that the vendor's not willing to budge on, whether it be indemnification, whether it be an non-discrimination clause, or even the governing law. Obviously, we want the state of California to govern. So a lot of the times we go back and forth fighting with these vendors on these caveats. And when they don't budge on those, that's when we enact that risk acceptance memo. And I've seen insurance been thrown into that as well. Um, so that's when we're asking your department to have a dean, associate dean, a director to sign off on that memo. Because again, we're letting you know that we try to mitigate risk on behalf of the university, but the vendor's not budging. But if it's a dire service or a justifiable business purpose of why we should engage with this vendor, then we'll have you sign off on that, and then we move forward with your service order or purchase. But again, our job is to mitigate risk on behalf of the university, and that's why that gets enacted.
That was it. He said thank you.
Thank you. And we can move on to the next one. All right, the contract request app. This resides on our website. And again, this is used when you're dealing with $0 agreements or some MOUs or some revenue generating contracts. It's not meant for you to submit with regards to a service order that has an agreement associated with it. You'll be submitting that via your requisition because there's usually a cost component associated with that. Okay. But on the contract request app, you just access it via our site. I believe there's also training links associated with our site before you even start using this. But it's simple. You just click on the new request. Next. You'll be presented with this particular form. A lot of the data is already auto-populated, and I believe that derives from CHRS system. So either your approving official and your manager is all embedded in the form. Um, but what we're asking for here is you give us some information to go off of, right? Your contractor, their address, their contact names, their phone numbers, and email. All this is imperative for us to have because then we start engaging with the suppliers or the contractors on an early stage to start the negotiation of contractual documents. A lot of the times you might have their templates being uploaded here, but as Christian Bones has experienced, we have a lot of templates that could potentially be utilized and streamline the processing of these agreements. Next. This is earlier I was talking about the type of agreements, right? It's MOU, revenue generating, leases. This is where you're gonna click down on the classifications of proposed information. You'll see some of those same categories under that drop-down menu. But what's important here is that you please answer the narrative questions as thoroughly as possible. This gives us a lot of insight as to what we're dealing with. So again, you describe the reason why you're requesting this contract, provide an overview of the scope of work of the contract. The third one, where you could describe any other significant factors, uh, this was where you could, put, hey, this is a renewal, or this is just an amendment, or we did this in the past. Here's the previous agreement number. That helps us a lot. to expedite this and move them forward. So as much information that you could put here, we'll greatly appreciate that. And Lauren, before we move on, I think I might have seen a question popped up.
Yeah, there was a question from Brenda. She said, "What about renewals? Same steps?" Brenda, can you clarify? Do you mean what exactly you mean by that? Renewals for, are you talking about what we were discussing with Paul?
I well, I think she might be meaning any new renew agreements. So KB,
Oh, okay.
Christian deals with a lot of clinical affiliation agreements, right? Or teaching agreements. They all come through here, even when they expire. So to answer your question, yes. Um, oh, if you already have an agreement, a contract, you're saying, yeah, you would submit any amendment via this process as well, especially if it's a $0 agreement. And I believe, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but the contract request app has a checkbox that says if it's an amendment to an existing agreement.
Yeah, that's correct. If you have a change that you want to make to a current agreement that hasn't expired, there is a way in the contract request application to select an amendment. However, if it's an expired contract and you want to renew that, then you would basically start the process over, submit your request through the contract request application, and a new contract will eventually be negotiated and executed.
Thank you. And let's go to the next slide. Um, as you can see, as we were just mentioning, right, the first item of there says amendment. Is this request an amendment? If you click that, then it'll initiate us to go look for the original contract template and work off of that. Okay. As Alex mentioned earlier, if it is an expired contract, we do request a new request to be initiated because we give it a new contract number. It might be in a different fiscal year as well. So that all that helps us keep track of all these type of agreements. Um, so once you complete this information here, we ask you to please attach any relevant information associated with this request. A lot of the times what we see is it helps us a lot, and users will submit the previous year agreement or a previous template that was pre-negotiated with the vendors. That helps a lot because we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and we're able to just quickly move this forward. You might have already experienced a little bit more quick turnaround. Christian Bonus, I call her KB, has done a great job on staying on top of this, and she really gets to them and starts to work with the vendors right away. Alex, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty soon I think we're going to be changing this platform to be more of a ServiceNow ticketing component. So we'll be able to have better metrics for you as well, and you'll be given an incident number associated with your request as well. Once completed, you just hit the submit request button. You'll also get an automatic response from the system letting you know that your contract has been submitted, and then you'll go through the workflow of getting your fiscal resource manager to approve it so that I or KB could go in there and assign it to a buyer, most likely to herself or to me. Next. All right, we're almost at the home stretch, guys. I appreciate you, and thanks for enduring my, squeaky voice this whole hour almost. But I think we feel that it's imperative information for you to know and also understand some of the nuances that we go through when processing requests, and just keep in mind that we buy for the entire university. We have several departments coming to us with a lot of sometimes unique and complex acquisitions, and some are straightforward. So it just varies in the complexity on a day-to-day basis. With year end around the corner, we are starting to get a lot of requests. Some of the links that you see here are imperative for you to keep aware of. So if you're potentially looking to buy something, use these sites to see if maybe the vendor you're working with has a MEA or a consortium. Sourcewell, Omnia Partners are really good sites for you to visit. They're fairly intuitive to use, and if you put the type of product you're looking for, they'll spit out to you the number of vendors under their portfolio. If you find it there and you see a contract, I advise that you reference that on your requisition. And a lot of the times, have the vendors reference that on their quote. It'll help the buyers expedite your purchase. Okay. So, as you are aware, Friday, April 4th was the, I guess, the last day for you guys to submit any requisitions over $100,000, right? So, if time permitted, we could help you out and process some of those high dollar orders only if they fall under these consortiums or MEA contracts. Because again, the formal bidding process has been done. Okay. It's no guarantee, but again, we'll try our best. Next. So here's the important links for you to remember. The contract and procurement website. We've updated and revised our websites that I think they look a lot better than they used to. So thank you, Brenda, for that. They're pretty intuitive. They have all the forms and the services that we offer. The contract request app link is the one you would be using for the screenshots that you saw earlier. Again, when you click on that, there is a training either video or process, a step-by-step process for submitters and approvers. So take a glance at that.
Hey,
Lauren?
yeah, Alex, I think that the link on this page is incorrect. I'm going to share that for the CRA. So
Okay.
I'm going to share it, the correct one here in the chat right now.
Perfect. Thank you, Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's update this before sending it out as well.
Yeah.
The vendor ad update request is managed by AP. So again, it's a smart sheet, in that sense. Remember what I mentioned earlier, if you're gonna do this, you must have a requisition number before you submit this, okay? So you can initiate the requisition and then help us by going and also adding the vendor request. What that does is it does cut down quite a bit of time, because if you wait for us to get the requisition and then have us to go initiate the vendor request, we might lose anywhere from 3 to 7 days, right, of time. So if you initiate this on our behalf, the buyer, when they get their requisition, they have the ability to go into the smart sheet and we share, databases with AP where we could go look to see if you already submitted that. And what happens if you have already submitted that, then all the buyer has to do is take ownership of that vendor, and AP now knows that it's a valid request, and they would expedite your onboarding. As you could imagine, AP gets a ton of vendors that visit their websites and try to become a vendor, but they only upload vendors that are truly going to do business with us and need to do business with us. So just keep that in mind. Then you have your furniture layout, you have your IT requests, or your RITM link right here, the chemical purchase request. I believe there is a chemical purchase training coming up pretty soon. So I would advise you sign up for that. It's going to be in collaboration with EH&S and purchasing or e-business. We'll be hosting that training. So I advise you visit that, because you're going to get a lot of information, as we've recently updated the standard operating procedure for that. The independent contractor determination request form, again, it's managed by HRIE. Please, if you think that your vendor or a guest speaker or small business might be a independent contractor, complete that form, because things change. As if you remember from the training we had with this, if you've been employed with any state agency, you might not be considered independent contractor, but that is only determined by going through this process. And HRIE has a Dynamex or the ABC test that they do for these type of requests. Lastly, we have a couple of items that submit the fleet management vehicle purchase. If you're buying a vehicle, please visit that website or that smart sheet and initiate that, so that you could have that ahead of the curve. So when the buyer gets the requisition, all we have to do is go to that database and see if that has been initiated and approved by Michael Grace. And lastly, the one that I want to talk to you guys about is this requisition status log. As mentioned in previous trainings, we're trying to be more proactive in giving you guys status. The requisition status log is a smart sheet that enables you to log in and see where your requisition stands. It gives you the ability to interact with the buyer assigned to this requisition, and you could comment or make notes with that buyer. Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but the dynamic view of this is only for those who have submitted a requisition, right? So if you didn't initiate the requisition, you're not going to get much out of that page.
Yeah, that's correct. The way that the smart sheet is set up is so that the requester name on the requisition has access to view the dynamic view for their specific requisitions. So if a change needs to be made to a different person, you could always email the DLCMP email address with that specific requisition. But yes, that's the way that the dynamic view is set up. It's set up to go to the person who submitted the requisition.
And next, and I think that concludes our presentation, team. Again, I thank you in advance for your time and consideration of visiting us. If there's additional questions, we'll answer those now. Peggy. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, thank you so much. The question I have is regarding constant contact. I know several departments I've seen use it, nursing does, in order to send out newsletters and various communication pieces. Last year, when I did this, I got an IT authorization and they referred me to that I needed to get a contract. So the problem with constant contact is that they don't accept checks. They just want online, like a credit card type payment. So what's the best approach for this? What can we do, or what should we do if we're using constant contact and we get a quote? We get the IT authorization, but IT is saying, okay, well, you have to go to get a purchase order with contracts and procurement.
Did they give you any additional information, Peggy, as to why they were thinking that it needed a contract?
No, they just said maybe the dollar amount was 2,100. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Do you know if it had level 1 or level 2 data? Maybe that I think that might be one of the components that they're looking at.
It's just emails,
Oh.
names and emails. So those are all public records. I mean,
Okay. I think the solution for that might be is we could look at it at your ticket and see why they were requesting that. But another solution for that is, you submit an e-business request for a queue number.
number.
And
Okay.
what that does is we work with the e-business team to before giving you that queue number to place on your P card, the buyers here will review the terms and conditions or the EULA or the click-through agreement associated with constant contact. And sometimes even the quotes require signature. So if that's the case, then the buyer will be signing off on that quote and then giving you the queue number so that you could place it on your P card. Alex or Lauren, if you guys have anything to add to that?
No, I think that sounds good to me.
Yeah, and Peggy and team, those who are out there, a lot of the times they're starting to now ask for contracts because of that GDPR that I mentioned earlier, the General Data Protection Regulation. Although it might just be emails or it might just be some like level 3 data, when vendors or software vendors are letting you know that you must comply with GDPR or the EU data protection regulations, that's when it's starting to become dicey, where you just cannot place on your P card because again, we're not set up to comply with such strict data privacy requirements.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'll try to do
But
it
yeah,
better this
but do
time.
the e-business queue request, and if that's the case, a buyer will be reviewing that, and we'll work with Nikki and her team, and then once if we're comfortable and it looks legit, we'll issue that queue number so you could proceed with buying that on your P card.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Peggy. So if you have any other questions, the whole team is here. It doesn't necessarily have to be about today's training. If you have any other questions, please add them or ask them.
There is another question from Alicia Wagner.
Mhm.
She said, do buyers have access to use their own P cards in a situation like this where queue number's not appropriate?
I'll answer that by saying yes. We do have buyers, and Alicia, that's a good question and a good comment in a sense, right? Because maybe either myself or Alex or IT said, "Hey, no, this needs to go through a requisition," right? Um, you could submit the requisition to us, and it'll be up to the buyer to determine whether, if it's a EULA or the vendor only deals with credit card payment. We'll convert that requisition into a buyer's P-card transaction. Hopefully that answers your question. So
Yeah, and then we can change the chart field information when we reconcile to chargeback to your department.
correct,
But
based
we
on
do
the
have our own,
requisition
yeah.
information.
We do have credit cards as well.
All right. Well, I can't stress enough to you guys about helping us with the year-end timelines that have come in. Some are coming, some are, I think May 9th is the last day to submit change orders for us. So please help us out and get those in as soon as possible.
There was one more question
Mhm.
from Hiromi Ladino. Sorry if I said your name wrong. Can we buy ebooks? Faculty is asking the library to look for, but it is a loaner. How can we purchase that? So purchasing ebooks, I guess, is the question.
Yes, you're able to buy ebooks. I think the only caveat to that, Hiromi, is that you complete the RITM for that. Because it's somewhat considered a software or an online transaction or ITR, information technology resource, you're going to need an approved RITM to make sure that accessibility are met. And that means whether you need a VPAT from your ebook provider or a EAP, the Equal and Effective Alternate Access Plan, if no VPAT exists. But we have seen ebooks purchased in the past. It could be either on the P card, or if it's for a large amount of books, we've also seen requisitions get submitted to us for that. We'll hang around a little bit longer if you guys have any other questions. But again, we can't thank you enough for your patience with our department. I've been blessed where I've increased my purchasing staff. And the buyers here are a great team. They work together. They try to, really take your requests seriously. And, we try to do our best. But as you saw throughout the slides, there's a plethora of policies and guidelines that we adhere to. So we try to navigate that as greatly as possible or as quickly as possible and efficiently.
Alex?
Uh,
Oh,
Hi,
sorry.
Jason.
Oh, hi. Can we go to the RFQ page again?
Sure. Alex, if you don't mind going to the...
Thank you.
Mhm.
So when it says requires 3 informal quotes unless a small business, what is the definition of a small business?
Great question, and thanks for going back to this. Small business, it has to be certified with the state of California through the Department of General Services. So I think that they're under a certain dollar amount that they got revenue on a yearly basis. But the caveat and important thing for you to ask if they're small businesses, are they registered with the state of California? And if they are registered with the state of California, then we could directly buy from them, assuming we get to another small business that bid on that.
I see. So if the business was in a different state, would they still be registered?
No, and unfortunately, we get a lot of that, Jason, where small businesses are with different states. The caveat to that is it's got to be registered with the state of California.
Okay, I see.
So, and even the disabled veteran business as well, right? It has to be registered in the state of California. So, in your situation, although they're telling you they're a small business, it wouldn't qualify. You would still need the 3 informal quotes. So you could have that out-of-state vendor be one of your proposers, right? And then you could try to find, if it's for widgets, let's say for a commodity, sometimes we even deal with internet pricing or an informal quote from another vendor via email that will satisfy those 3 informal quote requests.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem. And the good thing about California small businesses, Jason, they get a 5% business preference on their bids. So if you got two large businesses, both quoting you at $100, right, and you have a small business, the small business get that 5% preference, so their quote now comes in at $95. Although we're awarding it $100, but because of their California small business preference, they win the bid because they're technically $95 because of their small business preference.
Thanks.
Any other questions with this one? Again, the only other thing we ask you guys, is that you provide them all with the same scope of work and requirements, so that there's no impropriety as to someone got a leg up on the competition when requesting RFQs. Recently, we hosted a small business expo on the campus. I believe we're working on our website to provide you guys with resources to that. So hopefully we'll soon be able to upload all those small businesses that attended the conference, and all these businesses, you could rest assured, that are certified with the state of California. Anything?
I do have more.
Yeah.
Okay. So when this request for quotation, if I have something that's around 70,000, how do I request this? Do I go to some website, or do I just use the purchase requisition?
You can use the purchase requisition, right? So what's going to happen is, let's say if you don't help us by getting, and a lot of times we ask you because you're the subject matter expert of knowing what you want to help us get additional quotes. But in reality, all you have to do is submit the requisition to purchasing and contracts and procurement, attach whatever you have with the initial quote, and then it's incumbent upon us to now follow our policies and guidelines. So most likely we'll be reaching out for you for questions, and then we utilize, whether it be websites, or reach out to different manufacturers from the original manufacturer that you have, and see if there's an equivalent, or is there another distributor for the product you're buying.
Oh, I see. So I'm able to get the 3 quotes and then put it into the purchase requisition, right? Okay.
That is correct, and that'll vastly help you, Jason, in getting your order process.
Yeah.
Because if you just submit it with the one quote of who you think is going to get it, then we spend a week or two trying to get additional quotes on your behalf. But if you're able to do that, Jason, by all means, please do so, and that'll make the buyer move forward with your requisition a lot faster.
Okay, great.
Lauren, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize again that when you're getting the quotes, it's really important that you are requesting the exact same thing from all 3 vendors, so that it's a fair bid, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then, as in purchasing, Jason, if all fails where no one really could get that, product, or we could get additional quotes, then we have other methodologies that we could employ, and we'll be reaching out to you to discuss, the options available to you.
Thanks, Alan.
No problem. Hiromi has a question there. She's asking, currently we have a recording system for 1 year contract. We are considering to renew for 3 years. Yes, it is possible. Hiromi, just a couple of questions for you now. If you do a multi-year, which is considered a multi-year for 3 years, does that put us over a bidding threshold?
I don't currently have it, but we are thinking it's like they're saving like $350. It seems like a little saving that I don't have an actual quote with me, but my team are talking about it. So like nobody knows what that means to make it from 1 year to 3 years.
I think you can. Let me ask you, what was the 1 year contract cost?
I don't have it either.
Okay, no problem.
I'm brand new, so for this particular program, so.
Gotcha.
Oh, wait, hold on. Current 1 year renewal is 2,300. Sorry, 2,300. So then that was the current. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's, and then I don't know the 3-year contract. Cool, but I can get, and then if I go through the new contract, or renewal, like amendment, or what's the best way to do it?
Lauren, you gonna say something?
Yeah, it's to addressing this and just generally for everybody for time. If you have any personal like situations, maybe it's best that you email us or contact us directly, because then we can have
Okay.
like a more thorough conversation about it. Just for the sake of everyone else and that for time, Alex, if you want to continue talking about this one, it's fine, but I think that would just be better since it'd be more beneficial for everyone to talk more generally about this stuff. I'm sorry, Hiromi, I don't mean to cut you off of what you're saying, but it might just be more beneficial for everybody if we keep
Yeah,
the personal situations. So yeah, you could
Yep.
reach out to us directly. You can call or you can email us at our DLCMP with the information and we'll be able to give you more time to talk about it specifically.
Okay, sounds
but just
good.
remember, and just to finish the conversation or the question, Hiromi, again, if it's not going over 50K, if even if it's 3 years, then you should be okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but I
with a 3 year.
will reach out to the CMP to renew it.
And attach whatever you might have so that we could review it for you and give it a more thorough response through
Okay,
there.
sounds good. Thank you.
No problem. We do ask you to, I think Brenda did put the survey link on chat. So if you guys could help us, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we're not objecting to any, you know, criticism as long as it's outright approval. But please, thank you, Alex, for putting that again as well. So if you could complete that survey link, we'll greatly appreciate it. It'll help us improve our presentation, our communication, and I guess just better, you know, a representation of our office on behalf of the campus community.